Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Oh, God, please help me. You guys, I never talk on this show because they got me in a dungeon. Don't listen to them. I want to show my face. They just got me locked down here and I can't get out. Oh, God. Oh, I think they're coming. I gotta go.
Welcome to episode 80 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Ep 80, I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery, and hopefully we'll get through this. Like I said, my stomach is not doing well today.
Oh, you all right, buddy?
So, yeah, I think I just ate some stuff that may have not sat with me real well. So, hopefully we'll get through this okay.
The grumblies.
Yes, the rumbly grumblies. So, hopefully we'll get through it okay. I guess with my stomach issues, we'll go ahead and get over to the nerdery side of the house.
Excellent. Today we're going to talk about West End Games.
Awesome.
Another gaming company. West End Games was a company that made board, role-playing, and war games. It was founded by Daniel Scott Patter in 1974 in New York City and later moved to Hansdale, Pennsylvania.
Patter? Patter?
What?
Palter.
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 Did I say Patter?
Yes.
I need to clean my glasses. Yes, Palter. Sorry.
Thought it was.
Its product line included Star Wars, Paranoia, Torg, DC Universe, and Junta. Scott Palter received a JD from Stanford in 1972 and joined the New York State Bar before he began work at the family firm, Bucci Imports. Drawing on this financial connection, Poulter was able to found West End Games, named after the bar in which the meeting that finalized its founding occurred, the West End Bar near Columbia University. It initially produced board war games. In '83, Poulter hired Ken Ralston, Eric Goldberg, and Greg Kostikin as game designers, and WEG's focus turned away from traditional war games. Kostikin's 1983 game Bug-Eyed Monsters brought WEG, or West End Games, into science fiction and fantasy genres. Then Kostikin and Goldberg brought Patter a manuscript for a role-playing game that originally had been conceived by their friend Dan Gelber. Poulter agreed to buy the rights to the game, and after some editing and polishing by Ralston, it was released at Gen Con in '84 as WEG's first role-playing game, Paranoia.
Love Paranoia.
Okay, kids out there, for you guys who've never heard of this, how Paranoia works is you roll up a character and it has 6 clones. The goal of Paranoia isn't so much to accomplish your objective as it is to survive long enough through your 7 clones. That's how deadly Paranoia is.
Yes, because you're troubleshooters. You have to go inside. You're inside a dome, and as troubleshooters, you go out to solve problems. You're troubleshooters.
Yes.
And you are the lowest of the low in society.
Yes. Everybody in Paranoia is a member of a secret organization, and a
mutant.
And a mutant, both of which are illegal in Paranoia. And one of the ways to get ahead with the supercomputer that runs the dome is to turn people in for being mutants.
And the computer is benevolent.
Yes, the computer is benevolent.
The computer knows all.
It's also insane. It doesn't understand idioms, so bootlicking is actually a thing. You can get ahead in society, but actually leaning down and licking your superior boots. A high production value demanded by the war game industry made them one of the few companies that could compete with TSR, and they were able to acquire the licenses for Columbia Pictures PG based on the film Ghostbusters. The game Ghostbusters, a frightfully cheerful role-playing game, formed the basis of the D6 system, which was to be heavily used by many of their licensed products, including the Star Wars role-playing game, which they released in 1987. The Star Wars role-playing game, produced by West End Games, is thought by many to be possibly the best role-playing game ever made. There are several people, it's on several lists because it's just that easy to use. It's easy to roll up a character. It's easy in combat. It's easy to build missions. It's just, and they produced so much errata around it. There are so many books through this system that it's amazing. If you've never played it,
it's easy in combat, but combat takes forever in Star Wars.
Yes, it does. The game established much of the groundwork on what later became the Star Wars Expanded Universe. At that time, Lucas considered their source books so authoritative that when Timothy Zahn was hired to write what became the Thrawn trilogy, he was sent a box of West End Games Star Wars books. I did not know that.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
The game, based on WEG's earlier Ghostbusters RPG, established much of the groundwork for what later became the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Again, with the D6 rolling system. In 1992, West End Games published the second edition of the Star Wars game, which the title remained unchanged. In '96, a revision of the second edition appeared, but its title was slightly changed from Star Wars the Role-Playing Game, second edition, to Star Wars Role-Playing Game, second edition, revised and expanded. I think that's basically what most people played was the '96 edition, because that's the one with all the books around it. Yeah. By the end of the game's run, 140 source books and adventure supplements had been published
Wow.
for the game during its run through 3 editions. In addition, 15 issues of magazine series, the Star Wars Adventure Journal, were published between 94 and 98. The Adventure Journal was published in novel format with around 280 pages and consists of adventures and articles for the game, plus short stories intended to provide inspiration for game masters and news relating to the Star Wars game. West End Games' license to produce Star Wars material was lost after the company declared bankruptcy in 1998, and the license was later acquired by Wizards of the Coast, who held it until 2010. In 2018, Fantasy Flight Games published the 30th anniversary edition comprising the original core rulebook and the Star Wars sourcebook. So, Fantasy Flight Games has re-released the old D6 Star Wars system.
Mm-hmm.
It's in production. You can go out and buy it now. I don't think they produced all 140 books, but you can get a new core rulebook and go and find some of the older books to help you out.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I've heard the D6 makes combat a little bit better because it was a D20 system on the original, which is, I think, what made it a little long.
Yeah. The D6 system is really awesome. I've played it a time or two. It's pretty cool. Again, since, we kind of, well, I want to say we were adults, but we grew up with Shadowrun, all based on D6s. It's just easier for us to use, but our brains kind of geared that way.
Yeah, I completely agree.
1990 saw the release of the Tor role-playing game, followed in 1994 by the Master Book system, which was mostly used to license RPG adaptations of Indiana Jones, Necroscope, Species, Tales from the Crypt, Tank Girl, and World of Art.
God, I didn't know there was an RPG over Necroscope. That's wild. I love those series of books.
Yeah. Another licensed game, the Hercules and Xena role-playing game, was the last title released by the initial version of the company. In July 1998, West End Games went into bankruptcy following mismanagement between West End Games and its then parent company, shoe importer Bucci Retail Group. When the parent company filed for bankruptcy, West End Games was forced to go under as well. Despite an attempt by Palter to perform a Chapter 11 reorganization of the company's finances. As a result, former West End game designer Costigan and Goldberg took Palter to court over ownership of Paranoia, and in 2000, the courts ruled the license should revert to Costigan and Goldberg. So, I want to talk about Paranoia a little bit. Paranoia is a dystopian science fiction tabletop role-playing game originally designed and written by Costigan, Dan Gelber, and Eric Goldberg. The game did win the Origin Award for Best Role-Playing Rules of 1984, and it was inducted to the Origin Award Hall of Fame in 2007. Paranoia is notable among tabletop games for being more competitive than cooperative. That's true. Players are encouraged to betray one another for their own interests, as well as for keeping a lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek tone despite its dystopian setting.
Well, and one of the cool things about Paranoia, too, is as a player, you don't have to know much about the game. The game master is the one that has to really know it, because the less you know as a player, the more fun the game is, to be honest.
Yes. As we said before, the game is set in a dystopian future city controlled by the computer, also known as Friend Computer, where information, including the game rules, are restricted by color-coded security clearances. And again, you're a low man on the totem pole. You have no security clearance.
Right.
Player characters are initially enforcers of the computer's authority, known as troubleshooters, mainly for the fact that they shoot trouble. Because again, the computer doesn't understand idioms.
And they're generally issued weapons that have no instruction manuals, and they have no training or anything like that. They're just handed these high-tech weapons and say, here you go.
Yes, and in some cases, it's illegal for you to even have them, even though the computer gave them to you. Everybody is a mutant in a secret society, but everybody is also supposed to be going after secret societies and mutants. And the thing is, you don't know if the other members of your group are in a secret society that is cooperative with yours or not, because the secret societies are also against each other. Oh my God, it's so much fun to play because it's just a screw job. The whole game.
Yes. And the word paranoia fits well within this
Yeah.
because you're paranoid about everything,
Mhm.
about everything you do. Is it illegal? Is it not? Or, you're a mutant, you're a member of a secret society,
Yeah.
but you don't know about the other players.
Yeah. The missions often turn into a comedy of errors as everyone on the team seeks to double cross everyone else while keeping their own secrets. The game's manual encourages suspicion between players, offering several tips on how to make the gameplay as paranoid as possible. Each player is assigned 6 clones, known as a 6-pack, which are used to replace the preceding clone upon his or her death. The game lacks a conventional health system. Most wounds the player characters can suffer are assumed to be fatal. As a result, paranoia allows characters to be routinely killed, yet the player can continue instead of leaving the game. The easy spending of clones tends to lead to frequent firefights, gruesome slapstick, and horrible yet humorous demise of most, if not all, of its player characters. Additionally, clones can be purchased if one gains sufficient favor with the computer. So you can get more clothes, the later on you go. So in the game, the secret societies tend to be based on sketchy and spurious knowledge of historical matters. For example, previous editions included societies such as the Seal Club that idolize the outdoors, but is unsure what plants and animals actually look like. Other societies include the Knights of the Circular Object, the Trekkies, the First Church of Christ Computer Programmer. So yeah, that one's a lot there. That's just I've just got more stuff I'm related to. So in November of 2003, West End Games was bought by Eric J. Gibson's Purgatory Publishing. He moved the company to Downingtown, Pennsylvania in 2004. Under his tenure, Torg received a revised edition. Generic version of the D6 system was produced, which led to a line of irregularly produced supplements and met with general approval from fans. However, this did not translate into high sales. In post to the official West End forums in 2008, Gibson announced that none of the D6 products produced since he acquired West End Games had turned a profit. So West End's other RPG lines were not performing as well as he had expected, leading to losses of hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 2007, the company announced a new science fiction RPG by Bill Coffin called Septimus, offering pre-orders, but following delays in its it was publicly canceled by Gibson in March 2008. Gibson stated in July of 2008 that West End Games could not afford to provide refunds to customers who pre-ordered the canceled Septimus product.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know. You send in some money for pre-orders and you don't get your money back. So I'd like to talk about Torg now.
It's not a game I'm familiar with.
So Don has some supplements on Torg. I've read through them. It's basically like a Rifts game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's world encompassing and kind of generic. But it's a cinematic cross genre tabletop role playing game, created by Greg Gordon and Bill Slevesik with art by Daniel Horn. It was first published by West End Games in 1990. Game resolution was a single 20-sided die, drama cards, and logarithmic results tables, which later formed the basis of WEG's 1992 sci-fi RPG Shatter Zone and the 1994 Universal RPG Master Book, which you can use in Torg. It produced over 50 supplements, novels, and comics for the first edition. A revised and expanded core rule book was produced in 2005 with a single adventure. After West End Games closed in 2010, Torg was sold to Ulysses Spiel, who after successful crowdfunding campaigns published a new edition called Torg Eternity in 2018. Torg is set on Earth during an alien invasion, and players play archetypal heroes from different genres. The game's title Torg refers to an in-game title that individual leaders of the invasion strive to achieve. The title was originally an acronym for the in-house development of the game, the other role-playing game, TORG. Unable to find a better name, the name was adopted as the official name and applied to the game. Names that were considered but rejected included Shadow Wars, Shadow Spawn, Twilight Shadows, and Endless Earth. Torg initially achieved some success in saturated markets. Reviews both contemporary to the release of Torg and since then generally cite its uniqueness of the cinematic elements, e.g. the drama decks, the flexibility of rule systems, and the expansion of settings. However, various factors such as poor quality control and new products, and a large amount of required game material to purchase, and unwillingness to use the internet as a medium meant that by 1994, only a few hardcore fans remained. Various attempts, sales of the property and failed attempts at revising and resurrecting the game ensued. In 1995, Omni Gaming Products released the first issue of a new Infiniverse magazine, ignoring many of the series' ending events in West End Games' final publishing adventure, War's End, in the interest of continuing the game under their own management. This quickly fell through. But by 2004, Torg was again under ownership of West End Games, although West End Games itself was under new ownership, and a new version was under development. An announcement by West End Games' then current owner on the official Torg forums explained further. To that end, we are beginning our countdown to the new Torg event at Gen Con 2005. At this event, we will have at least 2 products designed for established Torg fans, but which will hopefully be approachable enough for new people who would want to get started in the grandeur of the Torg universe. But ultimately in 2005 came and went without the arrival of the new Torg game due to expanding resources at the time to develop and publish the new D6 games, also by West End Games. In addition, there was an upcoming second edition, Torg 2.0, was released. Torg revised and expanded debuted Torg 1.5 in order to invigorate interest among longtime fans. So in 2006, they actually produced it. And it is out there. Torg is set in a near future setting known as the Near Now. At the game's starting point, Earth has been subjugated to an interdimensional invasion by a series of High Lords who have changed the natural laws of large swaths of the planet to reflect those of their home dimension. The players assume the roles of Storm Knights, people from Earth and various invaded realms who possess limited reality altering abilities and who oppose the plans of the High Lords. Torg billed itself as a cinematic game and tried to emphasize gameplay in a manner similar to adventure films such as Indiana Jones. Terminology used in the game reflects that fact. For example, adventures are divided into subunits known as acts and scenes, and conflict resolution also reflects the cinematic nature of the game. Actions are resolved by a player rolling a 20-sided die against a difficulty number. The degree by which the roll exceeds the difficulty number of the task influences how successful the player is at the action. So if you roll rolls of 10 or 20, allow the player to roll again, adding their new roll to the previous. This can be continued indefinitely as long as the player rolls 10 or 20. So on a 20-sided dice, if you roll a 10 or a 20, you get to roll again and add it to the number. So you can really succeed, and how well you succeed affects the outcome of how you accomplish the task. So, it's not just punching the guy, it's punching the guy and doing a flip and going over the security gate. In addition, Torg also uses, there's an unusual card-based system to augment gameplay. Torg's unique drama deck, a hand of cards are dealt to each player at the beginning of the game. The rest are stacked in front of the game master. Cards can be used by both players and game masters to influence play. So whenever a combat encounter begins, the game master flips over a card which dictates certain advantages and disadvantages for the players and non-players, characters or NPCs. Players can also use cards to give them advantages or even plot lines, which can result in extra points. Players are rewarded with possibility points, which can be spent to improve the character abilities, similar to many other role-playing games. However, unlike in most role-playing games, possibility points or possibility energies also exist as an in-game phenomenon. And characters may spend these points to achieve certain effects, such as healing or warping reality. Character creation is limited. Both the basic set as well as the subsequent supplements provide several character templates based on general archetypes such as idleness hunters, vengeful humans, and werewolves. They can complete with a general background story and preset roster of attributes and possessions. Players' input is limited to distributing points among the array of skills. Eventually, further supplements allowed for more freedom of design of characters. So they really want you to use archetypes in this game. All player characters were known as Storm Knights. These were people who were able to alter reality in ways. The primary way in which Storm Knights are able to shape reality was the ability to impose the rules of their own reality on a limited area of another reality. So basically, there are spots in planet Earth where another reality is seeped in. So, it's zombie hordes in Cleveland, but over here in Cincinnati, it's the Wild West, and you can bridge those two things if you're a Storm Knight. The Living Land invade. Okay, so when the Neolithic reality of the Living Land invaded North America, soldiers found that their guns and radios no longer worked. Because the tech axiom of the cosm only allowed for a Neolithic level of technology. So that kind of messes with you. You go into a world where but if you're a good Storm Knight and can bend reality, you can walk in with your gun and you're the only one that can use it, which can benefit you. Yeah. You imagine being the only guy in the room with a gun in a whole like citywide area. It's pretty interesting. So Torg was designed to allow players to derive enjoyment from how characters, equipment, and environments of their various realities interact. Like having a Terminator-style futuristic cyborg adventure alongside Dungeons and Dragons-style mages in an Indiana Jones-style pulp setting. It also allowed players playing a game with an explicitly epic or cinematic overtone, as in Star Wars or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as opposed to RPGs like Vampire the Masquerade or Dungeons and Dragons. Torg provided a unified mechanism system suitable for any setting, characters, attributes, and game mechanics. So there was a lot of bodging with Torg. You could make up ideas and characters and things like that. Some of the things they had was like, of course, the core Earth, the Living Land, which was set in North America. That was the Neolithic era. The Nile Empire is a pulp action cosm combined, restored ancient Egypt and invading North Africa. Isle is a magical cosm with many elements of traditional fantasy fiction, including knights, dwarves, and dragons, and it covers most of the United Kingdom and parts of Scandinavia. The Cyber Papacy covers France, and there's a realm which was initially a repressive medieval theocracy that wielded real miracles. En route to core Earth, it melded with a virtual reality and gained cyberpunk technology and attitude. So you've also got Nippon Tech, which is an ultra-capitalist nightmare society covering most of Japan. This is your sort of Shadowrun. Orosh, a gothic horror realm, set in Indonesia, where the realm's Victorians consider it their white man's burden to protect the natives from unspeakable monsters roaming the countryside. So there's a lot of Victorian ideas and stuff that are messed up in the horror section. The Land Below, it's not a realm per se, but a pocket dimension created as an experiment between the Nile Empire and the Living Land. The dimension featured primitive tribesmen, giant apes, and hostile lands, similar to Tarzan books and stuff like Edgar Rice Burroughs. You had the Space Gods, which is high technology, spacefaring society out of Chariots of the Gods that visited South America centuries before. You had the Tharkhold, somewhere between the Terminator and Hellraiser movies. So you had demons and killer cyborgs.
Fun.
Yeah, and then Terra, which was regular Earth. So there were certain pockets of of that. So it was set up as a D6 system. It was used in games like Star Wars, Ghostbusters, and Men in Black. The Master Book system grew out of the system used in the game. Torg was further developed and became the basis for games such as Necroscope and Tales from the Crypt. So you could also incorporate some of those things into Torg. Now, some of the things that West End Games produced, again, we spoke about Paranoia, Ghostbusters, The Price of Freedom, Star Wars, Shatter Zone, The World of Indiana Jones, Necroscope, Tank Girl, the generic D6 system, which didn't do very well, but it's still out there. You can find it. Men in Black, Hercules and Xena. There was a DC Universe comic based on the comics. There was a Meta Barons, Septimus, of course, which didn't get off the ground, and a Stargate SG-1 role-playing system.
We played the DC Universe one.
Yes, we have. They also had Bug-Eyed Monsters. These are the board games, which I think we've played. Junta, which is a board game. Web and Starships, Tales of the Arabian Nights, and Star Trek The Adventure Game. Those are all published in the early 80s. You had Kings and Things, Star Wars, Star Warriors, Star Wars Assault on Hoth, Star Wars Battle of Endor, and Star Wars Escape from the Death Star. The 1990 version, not to be confused with the 1977 game by Kenner, which I had.
I had that as well.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever played because the board game for produced by West End Games was like a strategy board game. They also did several historical board games, Against the Reich, Air and Command, Air Cav, the Battle of Shiloh. So a bunch of Grognard games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Marlborough and Blenheim. These are all war games which take hours and hours to play and hours to set up, and you have to be a history major to understand them. But once you get the general idea, they're actually kind of fun to play too. You just have to be in the right mindset for it. But that is basically it for West End Games. There is a lot of errata out there. Some of it is being produced now. Hit or miss. Paranoia is out. It's being produced. You can go out and get that. The Star Wars game was taken over by somebody else and turned into, I believe, a D20 system again. So you actually have to go out and find the D6 system. But a lot of people have gone to their, used bookstores, picked up their D6 system Star Wars game and are still playing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't. It's not that the D20 system is bad. It's just not as easy to use. And like you said, it takes forever to play combat in the D20 system. D6 system is not necessarily like that.
Right. Well, I can't. I really can't recommend Paranoia highly enough because that's a super, super fun game to play.
Oh yeah. Paranoia is a blast. And generally, if you start a game master will start a campaign. If one of your players can finish the campaign, you guys have been successful.
Yeah, because it's super hard to finish a campaign.
Yeah, because you just keep getting killed off. I mean, you get killed off going through a door. So I remember one time we played and we had to go through this one little door, this one little section. And I think all of us lost at least one clip. And we'd only been playing like 30 minutes. Somebody had lost 2 already.
And the funny thing is, so you can shoot somebody for being a mutant or being a member of a secret society. You can kill them. And when their clone appears, you can't just re-kill them because you don't know that the clone is still a member of a secret society or a mutant.
As far as you know, the clone is a brand new person.
Right. And the clone can't just turn around and kill the person who killed them because their memories only go right up to the point that they die. And so it's the word paranoid can't describe it enough.
No, it is aptly named.
Yes. Fun game. I highly recommend that one.
Super fun. There's a lot of stuff that West End Games has. And I know I kind of ran through a bunch of stuff on Torg. Torg is one of those that's a generic universal role-playing system.
Torg sounds very interesting, though.
Yeah. Don's got some errata on it. I think he got into it thinking we were going to play it, and we just never did.
Yeah, I looked up the covers. I recognize it from the covers. I just never – it's not one that I ever played.
It's one of those things where I just sat down and, we were hanging out. I was just reading through it and I was like, oh man, this is so interesting. I wonder why we never play this.
I don't know. All right. Well, with that, I guess we will step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Wikipedia, Inquisitor, and Oxygen, and this is the story of William Devin Howell.
William Devin Howell.
So William Devin Howell, who's born February 11th, 1970, is an American serial killer who was convicted of murdering 7 women in 2003. Many who knew William Devin Howell thought of him simply as the guy next door. He was a hard-working landscaper who would pick up odd jobs, and most people never would have imagined he was secretly committing unimaginable crimes. Tucked behind a strip mall in suburban Connecticut, there was a secret garden. This garden was not filled with bright flowers or leafy plants. It was where Connecticut's most prolific serial killer disposed of his victims in a wooded area behind the New Britain strip mall, which he'd later refer to as his garden, after raping and killing them in his murdermobile, which was a dilapidated blue van that served as his own personal torture chamber on wheels. Bum, bum, bum.
He had an old blue van. Did it say free candy on it?
No.
Okay.
In just 1 year, investigators say Howell, who called himself the Sick Ripper, ruthlessly took the lives of 7 people as he worked his way throughout central Connecticut in 2003, mowing lawns and taking odd jobs to support himself between kills. He'd later tell his cellmate there was a monster inside him that just came out, which was according to a warrant obtained by a news outlet, CBS News. By the time a hunter stumbled upon three of the victims in 2007, the burly heavyset killer was already behind bars, serving a 15-year sentence for the manslaughter of one of his victims, 33-year-old Nilsa Arizmendi. In 2017, while already serving the 15-year sentence that I talked about for manslaughter, he was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. A life sentence in Connecticut is 60 years in prison, meaning he was sentenced to 360 years in prison, which he is currently serving in the Cheshire Correctional Institution.
Wow, 360 years.
Mm-hmm.
They threw him under the jail.
Yes, they did. So William Devin Howell was born in Hampton, Virginia in 1970, and according to Howell, he had been raised by a good family and a good home. In a televised interview, he stated there had not been any abuse or molestation, nor had he killed any animals as a young boy. So this is breaking the McDonald triad. Even though his formative years were thought to be relatively calm, Howell would develop increasingly violent ideas and tendencies as time passed. After entering adulthood, Howell began weaving in and out of the legal system due to drug-related charges. Of course, this would not be his last brush with the law. During these years, he also stated he had been plagued by rape fantasies. Even though he had been able to suppress them for some time, the voice couldn't be quieted forever. After a particular fight with his then-girlfriend, he allowed his angers and dark ideas to take center stage, and this would be one of the many horrific decisions that Howell would make before his ultimate arrest. The victims were identified as 7 women, including 1 transgender woman, Janice Roberts. Their bodies were discovered in 2 locations, including an area behind a shopping plaza on Hartford Road in New Britain, which I said earlier referred to by Howell as his garden. The person who discovered this principal body dump at the start of 2005, by which time the remains were mostly skeletal, had been looking for an area to hunt in. The ground is wooded and marshy and inaccessible by car, which delayed the investigation and the recovery of the victims. 29-year-old Melanie Ruth Camillini, who was a mother of 2 from Seymour, went missing on January 1st, 2003. She had been recently living in Waterbury and last seen in that area with 2 men. She was known to have a substance abuse problem and would regularly disappear for long periods of time, and her body was discovered behind the New Britain Shopping Center and was identified in 2015. Janice Roberts was the working name used by Danny Lee Wisnant, who was a 44-year-old transgender woman from New Britain. Last seen alive on June 18, 2003, when observed getting into Howell's blue van outside a Stop and Shop in Wethersfield. She was reported missing on June 24th. Howell later told an informant that he tried to engage Roberts in a sexual act, and when realizing she was transgender, Howell decided to strangle her. Diane Cusack, who was a 55-year-old New Britain resident, disappeared in mid-2003. Police last had contact with her on July 9th during a landlord-tenant dispute. Her remains were found behind the New Britain shopping plaza in 2007, and she was identified in 2011. Cusack, who also had substance abuse problems, had been out of contact with her family for years and had never been reported missing. On July 31st, 2003, a woman told police that her sister, 33-year-old Nilsa Arizmendi, God, I'm going to have problems with that last name. Arizmendi. She had not been heard from for 7 days. Nilsa's boyfriend, who was a convicted drug dealer, was immediately a suspect in her disappearance, but was ultimately cleared after passing a polygraph test. Her sister told police that Nilsa was a heroin user and a sex worker who was living in a motel in Wethersfield along with her boyfriend. He told investigators that he and Nilsa had allowed Howell to stay overnight in their room, and that he last saw Nilsa at 2:30 a.m. on July 25th, 2003, when she had gotten into Howell's van. After tracking down the vehicle, officials learned it had been registered to Howell's girlfriend, Dorothy Holcomb. However, according to her parents, Howell had recently purchased the van, which he would later call his murdermobile, for $400. Nilsa's body was found on April 28, 2015, along with the bodies of 3 other women. Howell would later tell author Ann K. Howard from prison that Nilsa had wanted a ride to Hartford, but instead he had grabbed her, raped her throughout the night and into the day before killing her and throwing her down a hill into his makeshift garden. Marilyn Gonzalez, who was a 26-year-old woman and mother of 2 children, went missing in 2003 after she left her home in Waterbury. Her body was found behind the West Farm Shopping Mall in Farmington, Connecticut on April 28, 2015. Later, Howell said he kidnapped Gonzalez and raped the 26-year-old throughout the night before stopping at McDonald's to get her final meal in what would become a very strange ritual for the killer. He said that he raped her, kept her in the back of the van, stopped at McDonald's, and said if she made a sound, he would kill her. He did anyway. Wait, I know.
Yeah. I'm glad this guy's behind bars.
Yes.
This is a guy that needs to be studied.
I would agree.
Yeah, because there's no cause for this. Well, I mean, that we know of.
Right. Nothing that we know of that caused this turn in this key to turn in his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Joy Martinez, who was 23, went missing on October 10th, 2003, but was not reported until March 29th, 2004. Suspicion arose when she did not show up for her birthday party. She was last spotted in her hometown of East Hartford, where she lived with her mother. In high school, she had been a track star, and at the time of her disappearance was unemployed. Her remains were some of the first to be recovered from the shopping plaza area in 2007, and she would be identified in 2013. Mary Jane Menard, who was 40, was a mother of 2 from Waterbury. I hate that these were mothers as well.
Mm-hmm.
She was a former addict, and she had turned her life around to become a substance abuse counselor, and she went missing from New Britain in October of 2003, and her remains were found behind the shopping plaza in 2007. All 7 victims disappeared in 2003, and the case remained unsolved for months until Howell became a suspect in Arizmendi's disappearance in April of 2004. The link to Howell and his van proved to be a pivotal moment in solving Arizmendi's case. However, it would be some time before he was officially held accountable. On November 28, 2003, a sheriff in North Carolina pulled him over for a violation. At that time, investigators convinced them to hold him until they could travel from Connecticut and serve him with a warrant for violating probation. Along with the ride back, Howell asked why they had come such a long way for a misdemeanor warrant. After hearing that it was linked to Arizmendi, he seemed surprised and stated that he wanted to remain silent until his attorney was present. Police eventually located a blood stain in the back of the van and confirmed the presence of her DNA, along with other unidentified samples and videotape showing him having bizarre sex with various women.
He videotaped it?
Uh-huh. Following the discovery, Howell was arrested in connection with her disappearance. DNA would be taken from Arizmendi's relatives to determine that one of the blood samples was 99% certain to have come from her. Because Arizmendi's body was yet to be found, Howell was charged at that time with first-degree manslaughter. Later, he was also charged with witness tampering after threatening another inmate. In January of 2007, shortly after the trial began, Howell entered an Alford plea to first-degree manslaughter, meaning he did not have to admit to the crime, but conceded that the prosecution had enough to make a conviction likely. We've talked about Alford pleas before.
Yes.
At sentencing, Howell continued to insist he did not kill Arizmendi, arguing that the bloodstains were from a physical fight that Arizmendi had in the van with her boyfriend. He also tried to get his Alford plea thrown out, claiming he had only entered the plea because his public defender pressured him to do so. Howell was sentenced to 15 years in prison for manslaughter in the first degree. Then just weeks later, a hunter found bones behind the West Farms shopping mall in West Hartford, Connecticut, and they were later identified as Cusack, Martinez, and Menard. More remains were discovered on April 28, 2015, when they were identified as Arizmendi, Gonzalez, Caminilli, and Wizenant. Howell later told his cellmate that there was a monster inside of him and described himself as a sick ripper, which led Howell to being referred to as the sick ripper by some media outlets. He also told the inmate Jonathan Mills during a card game that he kept one of the women's bodies in his van for 2 weeks because it was too cold outside to bury her. He slept next to her for 2 weeks and called the victim his baby.
Ugh.
Howell would later cut off her fingertips, dismantled her bottom jaw, and disposed of her body parts in Virginia. Using details he had gleaned from his conversation with the killer, Mills drew police a detailed map of where the bodies were buried, and in April of 2015, investigators found the bodies of Arizmendi and three other victims, Melanie Ruth Caminilli, Marilyn Gonzalez, and Danny Lee Wisnant, in the same wooded area behind the shopping mall of the Hartford Road.
Wow.
On November 17, 2017, Howell was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences after pleading guilty to the murders of Cusack, Martinez, Menard, Gonzalez, Caminilli, and Wisnant. I'm just tripping over all these names today.
I think you're all right.
He did cry and apologize to the families of the victims during the sentences, calling his actions monstrous, cowardly, and selfish. He told the court that he deserved the death penalty, but that was abolished by the Connecticut Supreme Court in 2015. His Garden Conversations with a Serial Killer is an autobiographical and biographical true crime book by true crime author Ann K. Howard and was written about Howell. A practicing attorney, Howard first contacted Howell in July of 2015 when he was serving a 15-year sentence for the murder of Nilsa Arizmendi. He was about to be charged for the remaining 6 murders. After pleading guilty to the remaining 6 murder charges on September 8, 2017, he exclusively gave detailed confessions to Howard in letters and recorded phone calls. Howell insisted his motivations for the slayings was never about the killing. He said, quote, "I just killed them to conceal the evidence. I knew that once I raped them, they would go to the cops and I'd end back up in jail, so I had to keep that from happening. I definitely didn't enjoy killing them. As I choked them out, I was thinking, just hurry up and die." Howell decided to plead guilty to the 6 remaining murders in 2017 to spare his victim's family the agony of a trial and tearfully recounted his crimes at an emotionally charged sentencing hearing that year. He said, quote, "First, I want to apologize to the victims' families. I know everyone wants to know why I committed these crimes. I do not have an answer. I do not know myself." Howell was hoping for the death penalty, but since capital punishment was abolished by the state, Howell was sentenced to 360 years behind bars instead. New Britain State Attorney Brian Prileski said at that time, "This sentence doesn't do justice for the evil done by this defendant, but it's as close to justice as we can get." After claiming 7 lives, Howell still believes he isn't a monster. He said, quote, "I mean, I committed monstrous and heinous crimes, but my true character isn't a monster or heinous person." I think the families of the victims would probably disagree.
Again, I'm glad this guy is behind bars. We really need we need to study this dude.
I agree. I absolutely agree that this is someone that needs to be studied, and I don't know that they are. I don't have any information
Yeah.
about that. All we know is he is behind bars and he is coming out feet first.
Yes, he is coming out of that jail feet first.
Yes.
Hell, they may bury him under the jail.
Right.
Is there any evidence of head trauma?
No, and it didn't say anything about that, which I'm surprised. There's no evidence of head trauma, of sexual abuse, of any physical or sexual abuse. No torturing of animals, no setting fires, no bedwetting. I mean, this one is just kind of something turned the key in this guy's head.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and apparently he doesn't know either.
No, he doesn't. He knows that he's done monstrous things, but he doesn't believe that he is a monster. So
yeah,
this is someone who deserves a lot of study.
Yes.
A lot of study.
Please. We have to study this so we can figure out how to stop making them.
Yes. Figure out exactly, as I said, what turned the key in this guy's head.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's my story, and that takes us to the end of another recording week. I appreciate everything that you brought to us today, Zig.
Thank you. There was a lot of notes on West End Game. Sorry.
No, awesome. I appreciate it.
Sure.
As I love some of those games myself. So
Paranoia. And yeah, I think we should give Torg a play at some point. I think it might be fun.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Well, as always, you can find our information on nerderyandmurdery.com. You can find our contact information where if you wish to contact us and let us know the things you want to hear, tell us things you don't want to hear. We definitely take recommendations from people and put them out there where we can.
We absolutely do. We also have a YouTube page where we have made playlists, and going forward, there will be a playlist for every episode. So there'll be information about the nerdery subjects and videos and things like that.
That's outstanding. You can also find the link to our merchandise page where if you wish to show off your nerdery and murdery fandom, you can certainly find products there. You can also find the link to our Patreons where if you wish to get episodes early plus links to exclusive episodes, please do consider being a patron. That goes to help keep our show going and because there are expenses that occur keeping this show on the air. So do please consider being a patron.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And last, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It helps us and helps others find our content. So with that takes us to the end of another recording week.
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery.
Guys, please, someone come save me from these people.